Poor woman offers her body to a millionaire for $1,000, but ends up falling in love with him. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Sophia Adams stared at the pile of medical bills on her kitchen table, her hands shaking as she added up the numbers one more time. The total didn't change. $987,654 for her daughter Emily's heart surgery. The insurance company had denied their claim again, calling it experimental. Sophia knew better. This surgery wasn't experimental. It was Emily's only chance at survival. "Mommy, can I have some juice?" 8-year-old Emily called from the living room couch, where she lay wrapped in her favorite purple blanket. Her face was pale, too pale for a child her age. "Coming, sweetie." Sophia quickly wiped away her tears and grabbed a juice box from the fridge. She couldn't let Emily see her crying. She had to be strong. As she handed Emily the juice, her phone buzzed with another text from the hospital's billing department. "Final notice," it read. They needed a deposit of $250,000 by the end of the month to schedule the surgery. Sophia's waitressing job at Joe's Diner barely covered their rent and groceries. She'd already sold her car, emptied her savings, and maxed out every credit card she owned. "Thanks, Mommy," Emily said with a weak smile. "Are you going to the fancy party tonight?" Sophia nodded. Her friend Maria, who worked as a caterer, had gotten her a job serving drinks at some Millionaire's charity gala. The pay wasn't much, but every dollar counted. "Mrs. Johnson from next door will stay with you, okay? I'll be back before midnight." Later that evening, Sophia stood in the grand ballroom of the Blackwood mansion, wearing a borrowed black dress and carrying a tray of champagne. The room sparkled with crystal chandeliers and diamond jewelry. One necklace in this room could pay for Emily's surgery. "Another champagne, please," a deep voice said behind her. Sophia turned to find herself face to face with Adrian Blackwood himself. She'd seen his picture in magazines, the 35-year-old tech millionaire who'd made his fortune developing medical software. He was taller in person, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to look right through her. "Of course, sir," Sophia said, offering him a glass. As he reached for it, their fingers brushed. She felt a jolt of electricity run through her body. "You're new," Adrian said, studying her face. "I know all the regular servers at these events." "Just filling in for tonight," Sophia replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "This man probably spent more on coffee each month than she made in a year." "Well, you're doing a wonderful job," he said with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He looked tired, bored even, despite being surrounded by luxury. That's when the crazy idea hit her. The kind of idea that only comes when you're desperate enough to try anything. "Mr. Blackwood," she said before she could stop herself, "could I speak with you privately for a moment?" He raised an eyebrow, but nodded, gesturing toward a quiet corner of the ballroom. Sophia set down her tray and followed him, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. "I have a proposition for you," she said, forcing the words out before she lost her nerve. $1 million. One night. With me." Adrian's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed as he studied her face. "Are you serious?" "Completely." Sophia met his gaze, refusing to look away. "My daughter needs heart surgery. The insurance won't cover it. I've tried everything else." "Everything except prostitution." His voice was cold, judgmental. "Judge me all you want," Sophia shot back. "When you're watching your child die because you can't afford to save them, then you can talk to me about morals." Something in her words seemed to hit home. Adrian's expression softened slightly. "Tell me about your daughter." So Sophia did. She told him about Emily's condition, about the surgery that could save her life, about the endless fights with insurance companies and hospitals. The words poured out of her like a flood. $1 million, Adrian said when she finished. "One night, no strings attached." Sophia nodded, her throat too tight to speak. "Meet me here tomorrow at 8 p.m., he said, pulling out a business card and writing an address on the back. "We'll handle the financial arrangements first." As Sophia walked home that night, the business card burning a hole in her pocket, she wondered if she'd just saved her daughter's life or made the biggest mistake of her own. When she got home, Emily was already asleep on the couch. Mrs. Johnson said she'd had a good evening, though she'd been tired. Sophia sat beside her sleeping daughter, gently stroking her hair. "I'm going to fix this," she whispered. "Whatever it takes, I'm going to make you better." The next day passed in a blur. Sophia called in sick to work, spent hours trying to make herself look presentable with drugstore makeup and her one decent dress. By the time she stood outside the address Adrian had given her, a luxury apartment building in the heart of downtown, Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely press the elevator button. Adrian was waiting in the penthouse, dressed casually in jeans and a black sweater that probably cost more than her monthly rent. A lawyer sat at the dining room table, surrounded by papers. "The money will be transferred to your account immediately," Adrian explained, gesturing to the documents. "The lawyer has drawn up confidentiality agreements for both of us." Sophia nodded, unable to speak. This was really happening. She was really going to do this. "Sign here," the lawyer said, pointing to several marked lines. Sophia's signature looked shaky, but it was done. The lawyer checked his phone, nodded to Adrian, and left. "The money has been transferred," Adrian said. "You can check your account." With trembling fingers, Sophia pulled up her bank app. There it was, $1,000. Enough to save Emily's life. Enough to change everything. "Would you like a drink?" Adrian asked, walking to the bar. "Please," Sophia whispered. She needed something to steady her nerves. As Adrian poured 2 glasses of wine, he looked at her with an unreadable expression. "You know, you're either the most desperate person I've ever met, or the bravest." "Maybe both," Sophia replied, taking a long sip of wine. It probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. "Maybe both," Adrian agreed, moving closer. "Shall we begin?" Sophia closed her eyes and nodded, telling herself to think of Emily. Just think of Emily. This was all for her. Everything was for her. But as Adrian's lips met hers, surprisingly gentle, she couldn't help wondering if she'd just crossed a line she could never uncross, if saving her daughter's life would cost her something even more precious, her self-respect. The night stretched ahead of them, full of possibilities and consequences neither could yet imagine. Sophia woke up in her own bed the next morning, her head pounding. For a moment, she wondered if it had all been a dream. Then she checked her phone and saw the bank balance. $1,000. It was real, all of it. She could hear Emily coughing in the next room and rushed to check on her. Her daughter sat up in bed, looking even paler than usual. "I don't feel so good, Mommy," Emily said, her small hand pressed against her chest. "We're going to fix that, baby," Sophia said, pulling her daughter close. "Mommy got the money for your surgery. Everything's going to be okay now." Emily's eyes lit up. "Really? How did you get it?" Sophia's throat tightened. "Sometimes grown-ups have to do hard things to help the people they love," she said carefully. "The important thing is that you're going to get better." She spent the morning making calls to the hospital, setting up appointments with the surgeon. Everything moved faster when you had money. The surgery was scheduled for next week. Just 7 more days, and Emily would have a chance at a normal life. But normal wasn't what Sophia got. That afternoon, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was Adrian. "Dinner tonight? 7 p.m. at La Maison? We should talk." Sophia's hands shook as she read the message. They'd agreed. One night, no strings attached. Why did he want to see her again? She called Mrs. Johnson, who agreed to watch Emily again. "You've been out a lot lately," the older woman commented, her eyes curious. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine," Sophia said quickly. Too quickly. La Maison was the kind of restaurant Sophia usually only saw from the outside, walking past its gleaming windows on her way to work. Tonight, the maitre d' led her to a private room in the back where Adrian waited. He stood when she entered, looking as polished as ever in a tailored suit. "You look nice," he said, though Sophia knew her department store dress didn't belong in a place like this. "Why did you want to see me?" she asked, getting straight to the point. "We had a deal. The deal is done," Adrian agreed, gesturing for her to sit. "I wanted to make sure you were okay." Sophia almost laughed. "Okay. I sold myself to save my daughter. I'm not sure I'll ever be okay again." "You did what you had to do," Adrian said softly. "There's no shame in that. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who—" She couldn't finish the sentence. A waiter appeared with menus, and Adrian ordered wine for both of them. Sophia didn't protest, though she needed a clear head tonight. "I've been thinking about you," Adrian said after the waiter left. "About your situation. I want to help." "You already helped," Sophia said firmly. "The money was enough." "Was it?" Adrian leaned forward. "What happens after the surgery? The follow-up care, the medications, the therapy? Have you thought about that?" Sophia's stomach dropped. She hadn't thought that far ahead. She'd been so focused on getting the money for the surgery. "I have a proposition for you," Adrian continued. "A different kind of arrangement." "I'm not interested in being your mistress," Sophia snapped. "That's not what I'm suggesting." Adrian looked almost hurt. "I want to set up a foundation to help families like yours who fall through the cracks in the healthcare system. I want you to run it." Sophia stared at him. What? You understand what these families are going through. You know what they need, and I've seen your determination. You'd be perfect for this. I'm a waitress, Sophia protested. I don't know anything about running a foundation. You'll learn. I'll provide the resources, the training, whatever you need. The wine arrived and Sophia took a long sip, trying to process what he was saying. Why are you doing this? Adrian was quiet for a moment. Maybe I'm tired of watching people suffer when I have the power to help. Maybe you made me realize I've been using my money wrong all these years. Or maybe you feel guilty about what happened between us. Do you? He asked, meeting her eyes. Sophia looked away. I don't know what I feel anymore. Their food arrived. Dishes Sophia couldn't pronounce, but that tasted better than anything she'd ever eaten. As they ate, Adrian told her more about his plans for the foundation. It would start small, focusing on families in their city, then expand as they learned what worked. Why me? Sophia asked again. There must be plenty of qualified people who'd want this job. Because you're real, Adrian said simply. You're not interested in impressing me or climbing the social ladder. You just want to help people like yourself. By the time dessert arrived, Sophia's head was spinning with possibilities. The salary Adrian proposed was more than generous. She and Emily could move to a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. Emily could go to a better school once she recovered. I need time to think about it, she said finally. Of course. Adrian handed her his business card, a different one this time with his private number. Take all the time you need. As they walked out of the restaurant, a photographer jumped out from behind a parked car, camera flashing. Mr. Blackwood, who's your date? Adrian stepped in front of Sophia, shielding her from the camera. His driver appeared instantly, rushing them into a waiting car. I'm sorry about that, Adrian said as they drove away. The press follows me sometimes. Don't worry, they won't print anything. But Sophia wasn't so sure. She'd seen the hungry look in the photographer's eyes. She had a feeling this wasn't over. The car dropped her off a block from her apartment, at her request. As she walked home, her mind raced. The foundation job was a chance at a new life, a way to help others while providing security for Emily. But it would mean staying in Adrian's orbit, facing the memories of what she'd done. Mrs. Johnson was asleep on the couch when Sophia got home. Emily had apparently been asking questions about where her mommy kept going at night. Sitting on the edge of Emily's bed, watching her daughter sleep peacefully, Sophia made her decision. She pulled out her phone and typed a message to Adrian. I'll do it. Not for you, but for all the other mothers out there who are as desperate as I was. His reply came instantly. You won't regret this. Sass, but as Sophia lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, she wondered if she already did. The money would save Emily's life, and the job would secure their future. But at what cost to her soul? And why did her heart beat faster every time she thought of Adrian? Little did she know, across town in his penthouse, Adrian lay awake too, staring at her message and wondering why he couldn't get her out of his mind. The morning headlines hit like a bomb. Tech Millionaire's secret night with waitress. The photo on the front page showed Sophia and Adrian leaving La Maison, his hand protectively shielding her face from the camera. The article was full of speculation about their relationship, with anonymous sources claiming they'd been seeing each other for months. Sophia's hands trembled as she read the article on her phone. Her name wasn't mentioned, but there was enough detail that anyone who knew her could figure it out. The comments section was already filled with cruel speculation about what kind of woman would be secretly meeting a millionaire at expensive restaurants. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maria at the diner. Girl, is this you? What's going on? Before she could reply, another message came in, this time from her mother. They hadn't spoken in months, not since Sophia had refused to give Emily up for adoption when her health problems started. Call me immediately, the message read. What have you done now? Mommy, Emily called from the living room. Why is Mrs. Johnson from next door acting weird? She kept looking at her phone and whispering to her husband when I went to get the mail. Sophia's heart sank. Of course, the neighbors would recognize her. They'd probably already shared the article in their neighborhood Facebook group. Her phone rang. Adrian, I'm so sorry, he said as soon as she answered. My PR team is handling it. They'll release a statement saying we're working together on the foundation. It'll blow over. Will it? Sophia's voice cracked. Everyone's going to think I'm your... Let them think what they want, Adrian said firmly. You have nothing to be ashamed of. But shame was exactly what Sophia felt as she walked Emily to her pre-surgery appointment that afternoon. She could feel eyes following them, hear the whispers. The nurses at the hospital gave her knowing looks. They'd all seen the article. "Ms. Adams?" The surgeon, Dr. Roberts, called her into his office while a nurse took Emily for tests. "I need to discuss something with you." Sophia's stomach clenched as she sat down. Was there a problem with Emily's surgery? "There's been some attention in the press," Dr. Roberts said carefully. "I want to assure you that it won't affect your daughter's care. But I do need to verify the source of your payment." Sophia's face burned. "The money is legal," she said. "I can prove it." Of course," the doctor said quickly. "It's just hospital policy with large cash payments. You understand." When they got home, Sophia's mother was waiting outside their apartment building. "How could you?" Margaret Adams hissed as soon as she saw her daughter. "First you have a baby out of wedlock, and now you're some rich man's mistress. What will people think?" "I don't care what people think," Sophia shot back, trying to shield Emily from the conversation. "I'm doing what I have to do for my daughter." "The daughter you should have given up to a proper family," Margaret snapped. "Instead, you're dragging her into your shame." "Mommy!" Emily's voice was small. "Why is Grandma so mad?" "Go inside, sweetie," Sophia said, handing Emily the key. "I'll be right there." Once Emily was inside, Sophia turned to her mother. "You lost the right to judge me when you turned your back on us. Everything I've done, every choice I've made, has been to save Emily's life. If that makes me horrible in your eyes, so be it." "You've always been selfish," Margaret said, "just like your father. He left us with nothing but shame too." "Get out," Sophia said, her voice shaking. "And don't come back unless you're ready to be a real grandmother to Emily." Inside the apartment, Emily was crying on the couch. "Why doesn't Grandma love us anymore?" she asked when Sophia sat beside her. "Oh, baby." Sophia pulled her daughter close. "Sometimes grown-ups let their stupid ideas about right and wrong get in the way of love. But I promise you nothing will ever stop me from loving you." That evening, Adrian called again. "I'd like to come see you," he said. "We need to talk about how to handle this." "Not tonight," Sophia said, watching Emily pick at her dinner. "I need to be with my daughter." "Of course," Adrian said softly. "But Sophia, you're not alone in this. Let me help." After she hung up, Sophia sat at her kitchen table, staring at her phone. The news article had been shared thousands of times. People were calling her a gold digger, a home wrecker, a bad mother. None of them knew the truth. The foundation job was supposed to be her fresh start, her chance to help others. Now it looked like just another scandal. Poor woman sleeps her way into cushy job with rich man. Her phone buzzed with another message. This time it was from Joe at the diner. "Sorry, but with all this publicity, we think it's best if you don't come back to work." Sophia put her head in her hands and finally let herself cry. She'd known there would be a price to pay for saving Emily's life, but she hadn't expected it to cost her everything: her job, her family's respect, her reputation. Later that night, as she tucked Emily into bed, her daughter asked, "Mommy, are you friends with that rich man in the newspaper?" Sophia hesitated. "Mr. Blackwood is helping us," she said carefully. "He's going to help other families too, families like us who need money for doctors." "Is he nice?" Emily asked sleepily. Sophia thought about Adrian's gentle concern, his determination to protect her from the photographers, his offer to help. "Yes," she said softly. "He's nice." After Emily fell asleep, Sophia sent Adrian a text. "Can we meet tomorrow? We need to figure this out." His reply came immediately. "My driver will pick you up at 9 a.m. We'll face this together." Sophia stared at those last two words for a long time. Together. It was a dangerous word, full of promise and possibility. She'd been alone for so long, raising Emily, fighting the insurance companies, working multiple jobs. The idea of having someone to lean on was tempting. But as she got ready for bed, she caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at her looked tired, afraid, but also determined. She'd survived worse than a scandal. She'd survived this too. What she wasn't sure she'd survive were the feelings growing in her heart every time Adrian looked at her with those concerned eyes. Feelings that had nothing to do with their arrangement or the foundation, and everything to do with the way he made her feel seen, understood, worthy. Tomorrow they would face the press, the rumors, the judgment. But tonight, in the quiet darkness of her apartment, Sophia allowed herself to wonder if sometimes the worst decisions could lead to the best outcomes, if sometimes love could grow in the most unlikely places. She fell asleep dreaming of Adrian's smile, and for the first time in days, her dreams weren't haunted by shame. Adrian's driver picked Sophia up exactly at 9 a.m. in a sleek black car with tinted windows. She'd barely slept, spending most of the night deleting hateful comments from her social media accounts before finally deactivating them completely. "Good morning," Adrian said as she slid into the back seat. He looked tired too, his usual perfect appearance slightly rumpled. "I brought you coffee." "Thanks," Sophia said, taking the cup. "Where are we going?" "My office," Adrian replied. "We're having a press conference at noon to announce the foundation. My PR team thinks it's best to get ahead of the story." Sophia's stomach churned. "You want me to speak to reporters?" "Only if you're comfortable," Adrian said quickly. "But we need to show them this is a legitimate business partnership, not what they think it is." The irony of that statement wasn't lost on either of them. At Adrian's office building, they had to push through a crowd of reporters shouting questions. "Mr. Blackwood, how long have you been seeing Ms. Adams? Is it true you met while she was working as a waitress? What does your family think of your new relationship?" Adrian kept his arm around Sophia's shoulders, guiding her through the chaos. In the elevator, she noticed he didn't remove it right away. "I'm sorry about all this," he said softly. "Stop apologizing," Sophia replied. "We both made choices that led here." Adrian's office took up the entire top floor of the building. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the city, but Sophia barely noticed it. A team of professionally dressed people waited for them, all carrying tablets and looking serious. "Ms. Adams," a sharp-faced woman stepped forward. "I'm Jessica Chen, head of PR. We need to go over your statement for the press conference." The next 2 hours were a blur of media training. How to sit, how to speak, what to say and not say. They wanted her to talk about her struggles as a single mother, her dedication to helping other families in similar situations. They didn't want her to mention how she and Adrian really met. "Remember," Jessica said, "you're a hard-working mother who impressed Mr. Blackwood with your determination to help others. That's all anyone needs to know." But just before the press conference, everything went sideways. Adrian's brother Marcus burst into the office waving his phone. "Have you lost your mind?" he shouted at Adrian. "Mother just called me in tears. The board members are threatening to call an emergency meeting. You need to end this now." "End what exactly?" Adrian's voice was dangerously quiet. "This, whatever this is," Marcus gestured at Sophia. "Do you know what people are saying? That you're being manipulated by some gold-digging waitress with a sob story." "Watch your mouth," Adrian snapped, stepping between Marcus and Sophia. "You don't know anything about her." "I know she's going to destroy everything we've built," Marcus shot back. "The company's stock is already down 5 points. Is she worth that?" Before Adrian could respond, Sophia spoke up. "I should go." "No," Adrian said firmly, turning to her. "You're staying. Marcus is leaving." "Adrian, think about what you're doing," Marcus pleaded. "The foundation is one thing, but this personal involvement, it's going to ruin you." "Maybe it's time for some ruining," Adrian said. "Maybe our precious reputation isn't worth protecting if it means turning our backs on people who need help." Marcus stared at his brother for a long moment, then shook his head. "You're making a huge mistake." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The PR team huddled in a corner, frantically whispering and tapping on their phones. Jessica approached them cautiously. "Mr. Blackwood, perhaps we should postpone the press conference." "No," Adrian said. "In fact, I'm changing my statement." "What?" Jessica looked alarmed. "We spent weeks preparing—" "I'm tired of the lies," Adrian cut her off. "The careful image management, the politically correct statements. Sophia's right. We made our choices. I'm not going to pretend otherwise." He turned to Sophia. "But I won't drag you into this if you don't want to be involved. It's your choice." Sophia thought about Emily, about the surgery scheduled for next week, about all the other families out there facing impossible choices. "I'm staying," she said, "but I have conditions." Everyone in the room held their breath as she continued. "We tell the truth, not about everything, but about why we're doing this, about the broken healthcare system that forces desperate parents to make desperate choices, about how many families are one medical crisis away from losing everything." Adrian's face broke into a genuine smile, the first real one she'd seen from him. "Deal." The press conference was nothing like what the PR team had planned. Adrian spoke from the heart, about meeting Sophia, about being moved by her struggle to save her daughter, about realizing his wealth came with a responsibility to help others. Sophia talked about the reality of being a single mother, fighting a system designed to break people like her. The reporters ate it up. By that evening, the headlines had changed. Tech millionaire and single mom join forces to reform healthcare. Blackwood Foundation promises hope for desperate families. But after the cameras left, Sophia and Adrian sat alone in his office, emotionally drained. "Thank you," Sophia said quietly, "for standing up to your brother, for standing up for me." "I meant what I said out there," Adrian replied. "Meeting you, it changed something in me, made me see things differently." Their eyes met, and for a moment the air between them crackled with possibility. Adrian leaned forward slightly, then caught himself. "I should get you home," he said, clearing his throat. "Emily will be wondering where you are." The drive back to Sophia's apartment was quiet, both of them lost in thought. But when they arrived, Adrian spoke up. "Sophia, I know this isn't the right time with Emily's surgery next week and everything else going on, but I want you to know." He paused, searching for words. "What I feel for you has nothing to do with our arrangement, nothing to do with the foundation. It's just you." Sophia's heart raced. "Adrian, you don't have to say anything," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know." As Sophia walked up to her apartment, her mind was spinning. Everything was changing so fast. The scandal, the foundation, these growing feelings for Adrian that she couldn't deny anymore. Emily was waiting inside with Mrs. Johnson, who'd been watching the press conference on TV. "You were so brave, dear," the older woman said, squeezing Sophia's hand as she left. "And that Mr. Blackwood, he seems like a good man." "Mommy, are you and Mr. Blackwood going to help other kids like me?" Emily asked as Sophia tucked her into bed. "Yes, baby," Sophia said, smoothing her daughter's hair. "We're going to help lots of families." "Good," Emily said sleepily, "because he looks at you the way princes look at princesses in my stories." Sophia kissed her daughter's forehead, wondering when her life had turned into something between a fairy tale and a soap opera. But as she got ready for bed, her phone buzzed with a text from Adrian. "Whatever happens next, we face it together, that's a promise." For the first time since this whole crazy story began, Sophia felt truly hopeful about the future. Maybe sometimes the worst decisions really could lead to the best outcomes. Maybe love really could grow in the most unexpected places. She fell asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming of possibilities she'd never dared to imagine before. The day of Emily's surgery arrived with a grey, drizzling morning. Sophia had barely slept, spending most of the night watching her daughter breathe, praying she was making the right decision. The surgery carried risks, but without it, Emily's heart would eventually fail. "Ready to go, sweetie?" Sophia asked, helping Emily into her favorite unicorn pajamas. "Will it hurt?" Emily's voice was small, scared. "The doctors will give you special medicine so you won't feel anything," Sophia assured her, fighting back tears. "And when you wake up, you'll be on your way to getting better." A knock at the door startled them both. Adrian stood there, holding a stuffed bear wearing a doctor's coat. "I thought you might like some company at the hospital," he said to Emily, handing her the bear. Emily's face lit up. "He looks just like Dr. Roberts." "My driver's waiting downstairs," Adrian told Sophia. "Let me help you with her bags." In the car, Emily fell asleep clutching her new bear. Sophia watched her daughter's chest rise and fall, each breath precious. "She's going to be fine," Adrian said softly, taking Sophia's hand. "Dr. Roberts is the best pediatric heart surgeon in the country." "I know," Sophia whispered. I can't lose her, Adrian. She's all I have." "That's not true anymore," Adrian replied, squeezing her hand. "You have me too." At the hospital, they were met by a crowd of reporters. News of Emily's surgery had leaked, and everyone wanted the human interest story. The little girl whose mother's desperate choice had led to a millionaire's change of heart. "No pictures of my daughter," Sophia said firmly, as security cleared a path for them. Inside, Dr. Roberts was waiting with his team. "Are we ready?" he asked kindly. Emily clung to Sophia. "Mommy, I'm scared." "I know, baby." Sophia knelt down to her daughter's level. "But you're the bravest person I know. And when you wake up, I'll be right here, promise." "Will Mr. Adrian be here too?" Emily asked, looking up at him. "Wild horses couldn't drag me away," Adrian promised. As they wheeled Emily toward the operating room, Sophia felt her knees buckle. Adrian caught her, holding her up. "I've got you," he whispered. The waiting room became their world for the next 8 hours. Adrian ordered food that Sophia couldn't eat, made calls she couldn't focus on. Every time the operating room doors opened, her heart stopped. Around hour 3, Marcus showed up. "Mother's furious," he told Adrian. "The board meeting is tomorrow. They're talking about removing you as CEO." "They can try," Adrian replied coldly. "I own controlling interest." "The shareholders are concerned," Marcus pressed. "Your behavior lately. This very public involvement with Ms. Adams and her daughter, It's affecting stock prices. Get out, Adrian said quietly. My girlfriend's daughter is in surgery. Nothing else matters right now. Sophia's head snapped up at the word girlfriend. They hadn't defined their relationship, too caught up in the chaos of recent weeks. Marcus left, muttering about family loyalty and business responsibilities, but Sophia barely heard him, focused on Adrian's words. Girlfriend? She asked when they were alone. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, looking uncertain for the first time since she'd met him. I know we haven't talked about it, and maybe this isn't the right time, but Sophia, these past weeks getting to know you and Emily, it's changed everything for me. Before she could respond, Dr. Roberts appeared, still in his surgical scrubs. Sophia jumped up, her heart in her throat. The surgery was successful, he said with a smile. Emily's heart is responding well to the repair. She's in recovery now. Sophia burst into tears, all the fear and tension of the past months releasing at once. Adrian held her as she cried, his own eyes suspiciously wet. When can we see her? He asked over Sophia's head. She'll be groggy, but you can visit briefly in about an hour, Dr. Roberts replied. She's a fighter, that one. In Emily's recovery room, machines beeped steadily, monitoring her precious heart. She looked so small in the big hospital bed, but her color was already better. Mommy? Emily's voice was barely a whisper. I'm here, baby. Sophia stroked her daughter's hair. Everything went perfectly. Mr. Adrian, too. Right here, princess, Adrian said, stepping closer. Emily smiled sleepily. Good. My bear said you'd both stay. As Emily drifted back to sleep, Sophia felt something shift inside her. The walls she'd built around her heart, the defenses she'd maintained since Emily's father abandoned them, began to crumble. Adrian, she said quietly. About what you said earlier. We don't have to talk about it now, he started, but she cut him off. I feel it too, she said simply. Whatever this is between us, it's real, and it scares me to death. Adrian took her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. Why does it scare you? Because I made a deal with you, Sophia replied, tears falling again. And now I'm falling in love with you, and I don't know if I can trust that, if I can trust myself. The deal was business, Adrian said firmly. This us, that's something else entirely, something I never expected but wouldn't change for anything. A nurse came in to check Emily's vitals, and they stepped into the hallway. Adrian pulled Sophia close, letting her cry against his chest. I don't care what my family thinks, he said into her hair. I don't care what the press says or what the board does. You and Emily, you're what matters now. Your whole life is about to implode because of me, Sophia whispered. No, Adrian corrected her. My life is about to become real because of you. They stood there in the hospital hallway, holding each other as the world continued to spin around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The board meeting, Emily's recovery, the launch of the foundation. But for now, in this moment, they had everything they needed, each other, and the steady beeping of Emily's monitors, proving that miracles sometimes wore doctor's coats and came with million-dollar price tags. Later that night, as Emily slept peacefully and Adrian dozed in a chair by her bed, Sophia watched them both and smiled. Her daughter was going to live. Her heart was going to heal. And maybe, just maybe, Sophia's heart was healing too, in ways she never expected. She pulled out her phone and deleted the bank alert showing her million-dollar balance. That chapter was over. Whatever came next would be about love, not money, about family, not deals, about the kind of wealth that couldn't be measured in dollars. Emily stirred in her sleep, mumbling something about unicorns. Adrian immediately sat up, checking on her before catching Sophia's eye and smiling. Get some rest, he whispered. I'll watch over her. And Sophia knew with a certainty that defied logic that everything was going to be okay, not because Adrian was rich or powerful, but because he had the one thing money couldn't buy, a heart as big as his bank account. She fell asleep holding Emily's hand, with Adrian's jacket draped over her shoulders, like a promise of protection, of love, of a future she never dared to dream possible. The morning of the board meeting dawned bright and cold. Adrian hadn't left the hospital all night, working on his laptop while Sophia and Emily slept. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes tired, but his jaw was set with determination. You should go home and change, Sophia said, watching him adjust his tie in the reflection of Emily's hospital room window. No time, Adrian replied. The meeting's in an hour. Emily was doing well, her color improving by the hour. She'd even managed to eat some Jell-O for breakfast. Are you going to fight the mean people who don't like Mommy? She asked Adrian. Adrian and Sophia exchanged surprised looks. They hadn't realized Emily understood what was happening. "Something like that, Princess," Adrian said, kissing her forehead. "But don't worry, nobody's going to keep me away from you and your mom." As if on cue, Adrian's phone buzzed. It was Jessica from PR. "Turn on the TV," she said when he answered. "Channel 6. Sophia grabbed the remote and switched on the small hospital room TV. Her heart sank as she saw her own face on the screen, but not from the recent press conference. It was security camera footage from the night at Adrian's penthouse when they'd made their original deal. Anonymous sources claim the relationship between tech billionaire Adrian Blackwood and single mother Sophia Adams began as a paid arrangement, the reporter was saying. Questions are being raised about the true nature of their connection and the sudden announcement of the Blackwood Foundation. "That's impossible," Adrian said, his face pale. "Those security tapes were encrypted. Only someone with high-level access could have—" "Marcus," Sophia whispered, "he's trying to force you out." Adrian's phone was ringing non-stop now. Board members, reporters, his mother. He ignored them all, focused on Sophia. "I'll fix this," he promised. "How?" Sophia asked, fighting tears. "The truth is out. Everything we've tried to build, the foundation, our reputation, it's all ruined." "Mr. Adrian," Emily's small voice cut through their panic. "Are you still going to help other sick kids like me?" Adrian sat on the edge of her bed. "Of course I am. Some people might try to stop me, but I won't let them." "Then nothing's ruined," Emily said simply. "Mommy says, as long as you're helping people, you're doing the right thing." Adrian and Sophia stared at their wise little girl, then at each other. Something passed between them. Determination, understanding, love. "She's right," Adrian said. He loosened his tie and picked up his phone. "Jessica, call the press. All of them. I'm making a statement before the board meeting." An hour later, the hospital's conference room was packed with reporters. Adrian stood at the podium, Sophia by his side. They'd left Emily watching cartoons with a trusted nurse. "Yes, Sophia and I made a deal," Adrian began, his voice strong and clear. "She needed money for her daughter's life-saving surgery. I had money but no purpose, no understanding of how the other half of the world lived. What started as a business arrangement became something more. It opened my eyes to the reality faced by millions of families." He took Sophia's hand. "I fell in love with her strength, her determination, her heart. Those who would try to shame us, to use our past to destroy our future, they're the ones who should be ashamed. While they play power games in boardrooms, children are dying because their parents can't afford medical care." Sophia stepped to the microphone. "We're not proud of how our story began," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "but we're proud of what it's becoming. The foundation isn't just about money. It's about giving hope to families who have none." The room erupted with questions, but Adrian was already leading Sophia out. They had a board meeting to attend. The Blackwood Technologies boardroom was on the top floor of a gleaming skyscraper. Marcus was already there, along with their mother, Victoria Blackwood, and 12 other board members. "Well, well," Marcus said as they entered. "The happy couple arrives." "Enough, Marcus," Adrian snapped. "I know you leaked those security tapes. Prove it," Marcus smirked. "Meanwhile, the board needs to discuss your recent, questionable decisions." Victoria Blackwood stood, her elegant face twisted with distaste. "Adrian, darling, this has gone far enough. This woman has clearly manipulated you. The scandal is destroying our family's reputation." "No, Mother," Adrian said quietly. "Our family's reputation was destroyed long ago, when we decided profit margins were more important than people's lives." He pulled out a folder and started distributing documents. "Before we vote on my leadership, I'd like to present some findings. Our company's healthcare software is being used by insurance companies to systematically deny claims like Emily's. We're part of the problem I'm trying to fix." The board members shifted uncomfortably as they read the documents. "Furthermore," Adrian continued, "I've discovered some interesting transfers from our corporate accounts to offshore banks. Would you like to explain those, Marcus?" Marcus's face went white. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Adrian smiled coldly. "I may have been distracted lately, but I'm still the majority shareholder, and I've been doing some investigating." Victoria looked between her sons, her carefully maintained composure cracking. "Marcus, what is he talking about?" "Nothing," Marcus said quickly. "He's just trying to deflect from his own scandal." "The SEC might disagree," Adrian said, "unless we could make a deal. You support the foundation, approve its funding, and leave Sophia and me alone. In return, these documents never see the light of day." The next hour was a blur of legal discussions and negotiations. In the end, the board voted to maintain Adrian as CEO, with the foundation approved as a major corporate initiative. Marcus stormed out, followed by their mother. "That was amazing," Sophia said as they headed back to the hospital, "but also terrifying." Adrian looked tired but satisfied. "Welcome to the world of corporate power plays. Are you sure you want to be part of this?" Sophia thought about Emily, about all the other children who needed help. "Yes," she said firmly, "but not for the power or the money, for the chance to make a difference." When they got back to Emily's room, she was sitting up in bed coloring a picture. "Look," she said, holding up her artwork. "It's our family. There's me and Mommy and you, Mr. Adrian, and all the other kids we're going to help." Adrian blinked back tears as he looked at the crayon drawing. "It's perfect, Princess, and you know what? You can just call me Adrian now, or maybe Dad someday if you want." Sophia's heart skipped a beat at his words. Emily's face lit up. "Really? Really?" Adrian said, sitting on the edge of her bed. "If that's okay with your mum." Sophia joined them, taking Adrian's hand. "I think that would be very okay." Outside the hospital room, the world was still buzzing with scandal and speculation. There would be more battles to fight, more challenges to face, but in that moment, looking at their little family, Sophia knew they could handle anything together. Sometimes love grew from the strangest beginnings. Sometimes the worst decisions led to the best outcomes. And sometimes, just sometimes, a desperate deal could turn into a destiny neither party expected. Emily fell asleep that night with her new family drawing clutch to her chest. Adrian and Sophia sat watching her, their fingers intertwined. "Thank you," Sophia whispered. "For what?" "For turning our business arrangement into a love story." Adrian kissed her softly. "Thank you for teaching me what really matters." Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, witnesses to a transformation neither of them had seen coming. A story that began with a price tag was ending with something priceless: love, family, and a chance to change the world. Emily came home from the hospital on a sunny Thursday morning, 1 week after her surgery. The doctors were amazed by her recovery, calling it miraculous. But to Sophia, the real miracle was watching Adrian carry her daughter into their apartment, Emily's arms wrapped trustingly around his neck. "Welcome home, Princess," he said, setting her carefully on the couch. "How about we order pizza to celebrate?" "With pineapple?" Emily asked hopefully. Adrian made a face. "Pineapple on pizza should be illegal, but just this once for you." Sophia watched them from the kitchen, her heart full. The past week had been a whirlwind since their public confession. To everyone's surprise, most people had responded positively to their honesty. The story of a desperate mother and a billionaire finding love while fighting a broken healthcare system had captured the public's imagination. Her phone buzzed, another message from her mother. They'd been coming daily since the press conference, each one a mixture of criticism and attempted reconciliation. "Your father and I are willing to talk," today's message read. "We're concerned about Emily being exposed to all this media attention." Sophia deleted it without responding. Her parents had lost the right to be concerned when they'd turned their backs on Emily. The doorbell rang, but it wasn't the pizza delivery. Marcus stood in the hallway, looking uncomfortable. "What are you doing here?" Sophia asked, moving to block the doorway. "I need to talk to my brother," Marcus said, "and I owe you an apology." Adrian appeared behind Sophia. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it in front of both of us." Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so similar to Adrian's that Sophia was struck by their resemblance. "Mother's in the hospital. She had a minor heart attack after everything." "Is she okay?" Adrian asked, his voice tight. "She's stable, but she's asking for you. Both of you, actually." Marcus looked at Sophia. I think seeing Emily's story, what you went through to save her, it made Mother realize some things." Sophia felt Adrian's hand slip into hers, squeezing gently. "We'll think about it," he said. After Marcus left, they sat on Emily's bed while she napped. "You don't have to see her," Adrian said softly. "After how they've treated you, she's still your mother," Sophia replied. "And Emily's grandmother, whether she's acted like it or not. Maybe this is a chance for healing." Adrian kissed her forehead. "How did I get so lucky to find someone with such a big heart?" "You paid $1 million for it," Sophia joked, then grew serious. "Do you ever regret it? Making that deal? Only that I didn't realize sooner what was right in front of me." Adrian pulled her closer. "Money bought me one night, but love, that was something neither of us saw coming." The next day brought another surprise. Sarah, one of the nurses who'd cared for Emily, stopped by with news. "I saw your story on TV," she said, sitting at their kitchen table. "My son, he needs the same surgery Emily had. The insurance company denied us too." Sophia and Adrian exchanged looks. This was exactly why they'd started the foundation. "Tell us everything," Sophia said, pulling out a notebook. Over the next few hours, more people came forward. A local news station ran a story about the foundation, and their phones started ringing non-stop. Each call was another family, another child, another desperate parent facing impossible choices. "We need an office," Adrian said that evening, surrounded by notes and files. "And staff. This is bigger than we realized." "Good thing you're a billionaire," Sophia teased. "Good thing I have you to keep me focused on what matters," he replied. That night, after Emily was asleep, they sat on the balcony of their small apartment. Adrian had offered to move them to his penthouse, but Sophia wanted to wait. Some changes needed time. "I got another job offer today," she said. "A daytime TV show wants to make me their lifestyle correspondent. They said my story is inspirational." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Are you going to take it?" "No," Sophia laughed. "I think I'll stick to running our foundation. Speaking of which," she pulled out her tablet, showing him designs for their first project. A housing complex near the hospital for families with children receiving long-term care. "It's perfect," Adrian said, studying the plans. "Just like you." "I'm not perfect," Sophia protested. "I made a deal to sleep with a stranger for money, and I was the stranger cold enough to accept that deal," Adrian reminded her. "But look what came from it. Love, hope, a chance to help others. Maybe sometimes the worst choices lead us to the best places." Inside, Emily coughed in her sleep. They both tensed, old fears dying hard, but the monitors showed her heart was strong and steady. "She called you Dad today," Sophia said softly. "When you were out getting her medicine, she asked when Dad was coming back." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "I want to marry you," he said suddenly. "Not for the press, not for appearances, not even for Emily. Just because I love you, Sophia Adams. Because you made me a better man." Sophia felt tears rolling down her cheeks. "Are you proposing to me in my pajamas on my cheap balcony furniture?" "Yes," Adrian grinned. "Is that okay?" "It's perfect," Sophia whispered, leaning in to kiss him. Later that night, as they lay in bed, Sophia thought about how much had changed in just a few months. She'd gone from a desperate single mother to a woman in love, from a waitress to the director of a foundation. But the biggest change wasn't in her circumstances, it was in her heart. "What are you thinking about?" Adrian asked sleepily. "About prices and values," Sophia replied. "About how sometimes the things we think will cost us everything end up giving us more than we ever dreamed." Adrian pulled her closer. "You know what's funny? I thought I was the one with the money, the one with the power to help. But you're the one who saved me, Sophia. You and Emily showed me what real wealth looks like. And what does it look like? Like a little girl's smile when she calls me Dad. Like the look in your eyes when you talk about helping other families. Like this, just being here, being together, being whole." Outside, the city hummed with life and possibility. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, wedding plans, foundation work, more families to help. But tonight, in this moment, they had everything money couldn't buy. Love, family, purpose. Emily's monitor beeped softly from the next room, a steady rhythm that matched the beating of their hearts. It was the sound of hope, of healing, of home. The sound of a love story that began with a price tag, but ended with something priceless. The private room at St. Luke's Hospital was filled with expensive flower arrangements, but Victoria Blackwood barely seemed to notice them. She sat propped up in bed, looking smaller and older than Sophia remembered, watching Emily color in a new picture book Adrian had bought her. "You have your father's artistic talent," Victoria said softly, surprising everyone in the room. It was the first time she'd spoken since they'd arrived. Emily looked up. "Did you know my real daddy?" "No, sweetheart, I meant Adrian's father," Victoria's voice caught. "He used to draw just like that." Adrian squeezed Sophia's hand. They hadn't told Emily about the engagement yet, waiting for the right moment. But somehow, watching Victoria watch Emily, Sophia felt something shift in the room. "Tell me about him," Emily said, scooting her chair closer to Victoria's bed. "About Adrian's daddy." Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "He was a wonderful artist. Everyone told him to study business, but he loved to paint. He built this company from nothing, drawing his designs by hand." She looked at Adrian. "You were so like him. Before I made you stop drawing." "Mother," Adrian started, but Victoria held up a hand. "No, let me finish. I've been lying here thinking about all the times I chose the company over my children's happiness. After your father died, I was so afraid of losing everything he built that I forgot what he built it for. Our family. Sophia felt like an intruder in this intimate family moment, but when she tried to step back, Victoria's hand shot out and grabbed hers. I owe you an apology, she said firmly. Both of you. I was so concerned with appearances that I couldn't see what was real. Watching you fight for your daughter's life, she looked at Sophia. It reminded me of what I should have been as a mother. Emily, sensing the gravity of the moment, climbed onto Victoria's bed and gave her a hug. Don't cry, Grandma. Mommy says it's never too late to fix mistakes. Victoria broke down completely then, holding Emily close. Adrian wrapped his arms around Sophia from behind, both of them watching this unexpected healing unfold. Later that afternoon, as they left the hospital, Adrian was quiet. Are you okay? Sophia asked. I've never seen her like that, he said. So, human. Nearly dying has a way of changing perspectives, Sophia replied. Trust me, I know. They picked up dinner on the way home. Chinese food this time. Emily's latest obsession since one of her nurses had introduced her to egg rolls. As they ate around their small kitchen table, Emily asked the question they should have seen coming. If you're getting married, does that mean Adrian will be my real dad? Sophia choked on her noodles. How did you... Emily rolled her eyes in that way only 8-year-olds can manage. I heard you talking on the balcony. I wasn't really sleeping. Adrian set down his chopsticks. Would you want that, princess? For me to be your dad? You already are, Emily said simply. You take care of me and Mommy. You make her smile. That's what dads do, right? Sophia wiped tears from her eyes as Adrian pulled Emily into a hug. Right, he whispered. The next few weeks passed in a blur of wedding preparations and foundation work. Victoria insisted on helping plan the wedding, but surprisingly, she listened when Sophia said she wanted something small and meaningful rather than a society extravaganza. Just family and close friends, Sophia said firmly during one planning session. In the hospital garden where Emily recovered, Victoria started to protest, then stopped herself. You're right. This isn't about impressing people. It's about love. The foundation was growing faster than anyone had expected. They'd already helped 15 families access life-saving surgeries, and requests were pouring in from across the country. Sophia spent her days meeting with parents, working with hospitals, fighting insurance companies, all the battles she'd once fought alone. One evening, as she reviewed applications at their new office, her mother showed up unannounced. The receptionist recognized my name, Margaret Adams said, hovering in the doorway. She said, you're doing amazing work here. Sophia looked at her mother, really looked at her. She seemed older, more uncertain. We're trying, she said carefully. I saw you on TV last week talking about healthcare reform. Margaret twisted her hands together. You reminded me of your father. He always wanted to change the world too. Before he left, you mean? He didn't leave, Sophia. He died. Margaret's voice cracked. The insurance company denied his cancer treatment. We couldn't afford it. That's why when Emily got sick, suddenly, so many things made sense. Her mother's bitterness about healthcare, her anger at Sophia's refusal to give up. Why didn't you tell me? Sophia whispered. Because I was ashamed. We failed him. I failed you. And when you made that deal with Adrian, you thought history was repeating itself, Sophia finished. Margaret nodded, tears falling. But it didn't. You fought back. You turned it into something good. You're stronger than I ever was. Sophia stood and hugged her mother for the first time in years. They cried together, mourning the man they'd lost and celebrating the healing they'd found. That night, Sophia told Adrian about her father. They sat on their favorite spot on the balcony, where he'd proposed just weeks ago. That's why the foundation matters so much, she said. Every family we help is honoring his memory. Adrian was quiet for a moment. I want to name the pediatric wing after him, he said finally. The Robert Adams Children's Center. A place where no family has to choose between life and debt. Sophia kissed him, overwhelmed by his capacity for understanding and love. Inside, Emily was teaching Victoria how to play her favorite video game. Their laughter floated out to the balcony, the sound of family, of healing, of second chances. Sometimes I wonder, Sophia said, if my father somehow guided me to you, if he knew that together we could fix the broken system that took him from us. Maybe he did, Adrian replied. Or maybe love just has a way of turning wrong turns into right destinations. Their wedding was 3 weeks away. The foundation was changing lives daily. Emily was healthy and happy, surrounded by more love than Sophia had ever dreamed possible for her. We should start looking for a bigger place, Adrian said. Somewhere with a yard for Emily. I like our little apartment, Sophia protested. It's where everything changed. Then we'll keep it too. Adrian smiled, a reminder of where our story began. As if on cue, Emily called from inside, "Dad, come see, Grandma's winning." Adrian's face lit up at the word Dad. It still did every time. "Coming, Princess." Sophia watched him go, marveling at how life could change so completely. A year ago, she'd been a desperate mother making an impossible choice. Now she was a bride-to-be, running a foundation, part of a family that had grown beyond blood to include all the broken pieces made whole by love. Money had brought them together, but love had made them a family, and that, Sophia knew, was worth more than all the millions in the world. The morning of the wedding, Sophia woke to find Emily standing by her bed, already in her flower girl dress. "Mommy, is it time yet?" Emily asked, practically bouncing with excitement. Sophia checked her phone, 5:30 a.m. "Not quite, sweetie. The wedding's not until 11, but she couldn't blame her daughter for being excited. The hospital garden had been transformed over the past week. Simple white chairs lined the paths where she'd once pushed Emily in a wheelchair. An arch of white roses stood where ambulances usually parked. It wasn't the fancy society wedding Victoria had initially wanted, but it was perfect. A knock at the door made them both jump. Margaret Adams stood there, holding a small blue box. "I know it's early," she said hesitantly, "but I wanted to give you this before everything gets busy." Inside the box was a delicate silver locket. Sophia recognized it immediately. Her father had given it to her mother on their wedding day. "Open it," Margaret said softly. Inside was a tiny photo of Sophia's father, smiling that warm smile she remembered. On the other side was a new photo of Emily. "So he can be here today," Margaret explained, tears in her eyes. "He would have been so proud of you, Sophia, of everything you've built." Sophia hugged her mother tight, careful not to wrinkle either of their dresses. They were getting better at this, being mother and daughter again, healing old wounds. But the morning's emotional moments were just beginning. Victoria arrived an hour later, bringing not just her hair and makeup team, but a surprise. "We found these in the attic," she said, opening an old portfolio. Inside were dozens of drawings, Adrian's childhood artwork that she'd kept all these years. "He was talented," Sophia said, looking through sketches of cityscapes and faces. "He still is," Victoria replied. "I saw him drawing Emily the other day. It made me realize how much I took from him in the name of success." She pulled out one last drawing, a recent one of Emily sleeping in her hospital bed. The love in every pencil stroke was obvious. The peaceful morning didn't last long. Around 9, Jessica from PR burst in, looking frantic. "We have a problem," she announced. "Marcus was just arrested." "What?" Sophia and Victoria said together. "The SEC investigation Adrian started. They found more than just suspicious transfers. Marcus was selling patient data from our healthcare software. Names, conditions, financial information, everything insurance companies could use to deny claims." Sophia felt sick. How many families had suffered because of this? "Does Adrian know?" she asked. "He's being questioned by the FBI right now. As CEO, they need his testimony." Victoria sank into a chair, her face pale. "My son, how could he?" "The wedding," Emily said in a small voice. "Is Daddy going to miss the wedding?" Sophia pulled out her phone, but Adrian wasn't answering. She tried his lawyer next. "He's doing everything he can to wrap up the questioning," the lawyer assured her. "But Ms. Adams, this is serious. The press is already gathering outside the hospital." By 10:30, the garden was full of guests, but no Adrian. Sophia paced in her makeshift bridal room, actually a converted storage closet near the garden entrance. "He'll be here," Victoria said, watching her. "He wouldn't miss this." "Maybe we should postpone," Sophia suggested, but Victoria shook her head. "No, Marcus has taken enough from this family. He's not taking this too." At 10:50, Adrian finally called. "I'm on my way," he said, sounding exhausted. "But Sophia, the press knows everything. About Marcus, about the data theft. They're calling it the biggest healthcare fraud in history." "I don't care about that," Sophia said. "Just get here." 5 minutes, he promised. But 5 minutes passed, then 10. The guests were getting restless. Emily kept peeking out the door, asking where her daddy was. At 11:15, they heard sirens approaching. Sophia's heart stopped. Was something wrong? Had Marcus done something else? The garden door burst open. Hadrian stood there, still in his FBI interview suit rather than his wedding tuxedo, his tie askew and his hair messy. Behind him, news vans were pulling up to the hospital entrance. "Sorry I'm late," he said, breathing hard. "Traffic was terrible, so I ran the last few blocks." Sophia laughed through her tears. "You ran to our wedding. I'd run anywhere for you," he said, taking her hands, "even if I'm not exactly dressed for the occasion." "You look perfect," Sophia assured him. They could hear reporters shouting questions from beyond the garden walls, but in that moment, nothing existed except their little family. Emily ran to Adrian, who scooped her up in his arms. "Ready to make it official, princess?" he asked. "Ready to be a family. We already are," Emily said. "This is just the party part." The ceremony was short and simple. They wrote their own vows, Adrian promising to always put family before fortune, Sophia promising to keep believing in second chances. Emily insisted on adding her own vow, promising to teach them both how to play her favorite video games. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the garden erupted in cheers. Even the reporters peeking over the wall seemed touched by the moment. At the small reception afterward, held in the hospital cafeteria, Victoria stood to make a toast. "When I first met Sophia," she began, "I thought she was a threat to everything we'd built. Now I realize she was the key to building something better. She taught us that real wealth isn't in bank accounts or stock prices. It's in the love we share, the lives we touch, the family we create." Marcus's arrest made the evening news, but so did the wedding. The press called it a triumph of love over scandal and a fairy tale with a conscience. But Sophia's favorite headline was from a small local paper. "Local mom's $1 million deal becomes priceless love story." That night, after Emily was asleep in their new house, Adrian had insisted on at least moving somewhere with better security. Sophia and Adrian sat in their garden, still in their wedding clothes. "So," Sophia said, "not exactly the smooth society wedding your mother originally planned." "No," Adrian agreed. "It was better. It was real. Like us. What happens now with Marcus, with the company? Now we do what we've been doing, help people love each other, build something good out of all the bad." He kissed her softly. Together. Inside, Emily's nightlight glowed steadily. No more medical monitors needed. Their wedding gifts sat unopened, mixed with get-well cards from foundation families. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The FBI investigation, press questions, more families needing help. But tonight, they had everything they needed. A love that had grown from desperation into destiny. A family built on second chances and open hearts. A future that promised to be better than their past. "I love you," Sophia whispered to her husband, "even in your wrinkled FBI interview suit." "I love you too," Adrian replied, "even though you married me for my money." "No," Sophia corrected him. "I made a deal for your money. I married you for your heart." Above them, stars twinkled like diamonds, but they both knew the real treasures were inside. A sleeping child's peaceful breathing, a family's healing bonds, a love story that had rewritten itself from tragedy to triumph. Emily's 9th birthday party filled the entire pediatric wing of St. Luke's Hospital. Not because Emily was sick, she hadn't needed a doctor's visit in months, but because she'd insisted on celebrating with all the children currently receiving treatment through the Blackwood Foundation. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Sophia said, watching her daughter prepare to blow out her candles. Emily looked around at the room full of children, some in wheelchairs, some with IVs, all wearing party hats and smiling. "I don't need to," she said. "Everything I wished for already came true." Adrian squeezed Sophia's hand, both of them thinking about how far they'd come in just 1 year. Marcus had pleaded guilty to all charges, accepting a 10-year prison sentence. The scandal had rocked the healthcare industry, leading to congressional hearings and new laws protecting patient data. Adrian had testified, turning his brother's crimes into a catalyst for change. Victoria, to everyone's surprise, had become the Foundation's most passionate advocate. She'd sold most of her jewelry collection to fund a new wing dedicated to helping elderly patients access care. "Your father would be proud," she told Adrian. "He always said wealth was worthless if it didn't help others." The foundation had helped over 200 families in its first year. Every success story brought more attention, more donations, more hope. Insurance companies were starting to change their policies, afraid of being exposed as heartless in the media. Today's party was a celebration of all that, and a reminder of why they'd started this journey. "Remember when we met?" Sarah, Emily's former nurse, asked Sophia. She now ran the Foundation's patient care program. "You were so desperate to save Emily. Now you're saving everyone." "Not everyone," Sophia said, watching a young mother rock her sick baby. "Not yet, but we're trying." The party was winding down when Marcus's wife Claire arrived with their teenage son, Tyler. It was their first time attending a family event since Marcus's arrest. "I wasn't sure we should come," Claire admitted, but Tyler insisted. "He's been following everything you're doing here." Tyler, who had his father's looks, but thankfully not his character, approached Adrian hesitantly. "Uncle Adrian, I've been thinking, maybe after college I could work for the foundation. Help fix what Dad broke." Adrian hugged his nephew. "We'd be honored to have you." Later that evening, after all the guests had gone home and Emily was asleep surrounded by her presence, Sophia and Adrian sat in their favorite spot, the balcony of their old apartment. They'd kept it, just as promised, renting it at reduced rates to families receiving long-term treatment. "Did you ever imagine this?" Sophia asked, looking out at the city lights. "That night when I made my crazy proposition?" "Never," Adrian admitted. "I thought I was just helping one desperate mother." "I had no idea I was saving myself." "Saving all of us," Sophia corrected him. She touched the silver locket she always wore now, thinking of her father. "Sometimes the worst moments in life lead us exactly where we need to go." Their phones buzzed simultaneously. A foundation emergency alert. A 3-year-old in Idaho needed immediate heart surgery, the same condition Emily had had. They looked at each other, remembering their own desperate nights, their own impossible choices. "I'll call the hospital," Adrian said. "I'll book the flights," Sophia added. Within an hour, they had everything arranged. The child would be flown to St. Luke's tomorrow. The foundation would cover all costs. Another family would be spared the choice Sophia had faced. "We should get some sleep," Adrian said. "Big day tomorrow." But they stayed on the balcony a little longer, holding each other, remembering. 1 year ago, they'd been strangers making a desperate deal. Now they were partners in every sense, in love, in family, in purpose. Emily's birthday card to them had said it best. "Thank you for showing me that love is the best medicine." The next morning, they met their new family at the hospital. The frightened parents from Idaho, their sick little girl. Sophia recognized the look in the mother's eyes, the one she'd seen in her own mirror not so long ago. "Everything's going to be okay," she told them. "We're going to help you." The parents broke down crying, holding each other. Adrian wrapped his arm around Sophia's waist as they watched Emily show the little girl her favorite books in the children's ward. "Full circle," he whispered. "No," Sophia corrected him. "Just the beginning." And she was right. Their story had started with a price tag, but it had grown into something priceless. A legacy of love that would touch generations to come. That evening, they held a foundation board meeting in the hospital conference room. The walls were covered with photos, smiling children who'd received treatment, grateful families, new facilities under construction. But Sophia's favorite was the simple crayon drawing Emily had made in her hospital bed all those months ago. "Look at that," Victoria said, following her gaze. "Our family portrait." She was right. In Emily's childish art, you could see everything that mattered: love, hope, healing, family. The things no amount of money could buy, but which had grown from a desperate deal into a destiny none of them could have imagined. As they reviewed plans for the foundation's expansion, Sophia looked around the table, her mother and Victoria working together on the family support program, Sarah coordinating patient care, Tyler learning the ropes during his school breaks, Adrian drawing up plans for new facilities, his artistic talent finally free to shine, and Emily, their miracle girl, their inspiration, doing her homework in the corner and occasionally offering suggestions that showed she'd inherited both her mother's compassion and her adopted father's business sense. This was their real wealth, not the millions in the foundation's accounts or the Blackwood family fortune, but the love they'd built, the lives they'd touched, the hope they'd created. "Ready to go home?" Adrian asked as the meeting ended. "We are home," Sophia replied, looking at their beautiful, complicated, perfect family. "Right here, right now. This is exactly where we're meant to be." And in that moment, she knew it was true. Their story would be told for years to come. The desperate mother, the lonely millionaire, the deal that turned into devotion. But the real story wasn't about money or scandal or sacrifice. It was about love, the kind that turned wrong choices into right destinations, that built families from broken pieces, that proved every single day that the most precious things in life couldn't be bought or sold. They had finally found what they'd both been searching for, though neither had known it when they made their fateful deal. Not wealth or security or status, but the simple, profound joy of belonging, of loving, of being home. The end.